What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Heel Deal Podcast. Back with your hosts, Zach and Ben. Zach, you have a good winter break?
Yeah, I did, man. Coming to a close, heading back to school here pretty soon. I hope you've had a good holiday break, and I hope all of our listeners have had a good holiday season and a happy new year so far.
Yeah, exactly. We're in 2020 now. It's kind of wild.
I know, it's crazy. New decade.
Oh man. New decade, some new sports. I mean, like I said last episode, it's my favorite part of winter break is just we get to sit down and not do anything but watch sports, you know?
Yeah, it's a good relief from all the academics that we have coming for us in a couple weeks.
Yeah, exactly. But UNC's been going at it, men's and women's basketball, and so this episode we're going to talk about the awesome bowl game against Temple. You guys all know how that went, so we'll just throw out a few stats and just talk about what we saw in that game and what kind of momentum that's going to give us going into next season, and then go into the ACC regular season preview that we promised. So that's where we're not going to go game by game. That would take way too long. But we're just going to talk about the schedule in general, who the biggest, most challenging opponents are going to be, and kind of where we stand going into these games. And then a little surprise, if we have a little extra time, might get into a bit of the NFL playoffs since that starts. We're recording Friday, January 3rd, so that starts tomorrow. So that's going to be exciting. We'll talk a little bit about that, right, Zach?
That's right. Yeah, we'll kind of just speculate about what we think will happen with that, and just give you guys something to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. So why don't we get straight into it? As always, a little bit of a rundown. It's a pretty brief rundown. Of course, all we really have is women's basketball besides men's basketball. So the games since we last had our episode, I think it was prior to the Alabama game. We were saying the Alabama game's like their first real test. The women unfortunately lost that game 83-77. They beat UNCW. They lost to Yale 66-63. So that was a bit of a surprising loss. They beat Pitt. And they beat Virginia. So they've started off ACC play 2-0. Right now they're 11-2 overall, and they're doing pretty well. This seems like a tournament team, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's a little bit of a change from what we've gotten used to in the last years of Sylvia Hatchell. So I'm hoping that the girls team can get going again, and then maybe we can return back to some of the 90s prosperity that we had.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's a really good slate of games going into ACC regular season play for them. Home games coming up, or NC State, which is going to be good. I think NC State might be ranked. Miami, and then on January 19th is against Louisville. That's for National Girls and Women's and Sports Day. So that's going to be on ESPN2. It's going to be a good game. So moving on from that, why don't we get straight into the Military Bowl? I think we both thought that UNC was going to win that game, but I don't think either of us ever considered that we annihilate the previously 8-4 Temple Owls, did we?
No, I mean, I certainly didn't pick us to explode like we did on offense compared to what Temple was able to do. I mean, I figured my score prediction was something like 41-28 or 27. So, I mean, I thought we would score a lot of points, but I thought they would also have a lot more on offense for us than what they did. The defense came out and played really well. A lot of the things that I had seen on film from Temple are the exact same things that they did. And, one highlight for me, Ben, as far as X's and O's are concerned with how our offense played was when Temple started trying to run some of those matchup zones with our fast receivers. I'm sure you remember in the first quarter, Sam took a bunch of shots. Mm-hmm. And that's what I thought was going to happen because, you get those receivers out with some momentum. Those corners haven't gotten up to full speed yet. If you can throw a good ball down the field, you can catch them before they can get down there to really cover you. So I thought that was an early little thing right there that really helped us open up the field offensively. And then later quarters, we were able to get the running game going with Javonte and stuff in the third quarter. And we really, made them defend everything, and they didn't really have much for us.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the Tar Heels dominated in just about every single aspect of the game. So it was 55-13, but we had 33 first downs compared to their 16. We almost had double their total yards, 534 for the Heels versus 272 for the Owls. We had 100 more passing yards. We had like almost 150 more rushing yards. They had 2 turnovers. We had 1. We had fewer penalties. We had more time of possession. It was just an all-around domination, which is going to be some really, really great momentum going into next season.
Yeah, it certainly will be. And, you and I have talked a little bit about, what we have coming back on offense and defense and things of that nature. And to be honest with you, Ben, I mean, we don't know for sure right now. At least I don't think we know for sure. I may be wrong on this, but I think Daz has not necessarily said yet like exactly what he's doing, but I think the overwhelming opinion is that he will come back for his senior year. I know Michael Carter has already said that he's not going to test any NFL waters. He's going to come back for his senior year. We also have, of course, Bo Corrales and Antoine Green, Rontavious Groves, all those guys coming back in the receiving core. So, I mean, really, we get all of our receivers back. All the running backs except for Antonio Williams, who is a senior, we get back. Most of the offensive line we get back minus Polino. And then I think one other. So, I mean, really, we have.
Yeah, isn't Charlie Heck a senior?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, he's a big one. So, yeah, Heck and Polino, or we lose them. But, outside of those 2 guys and then Antonio Williams, to be honest, and then Carl Tucker, I think he announced he's transferring as a grad student. But with the exception of those guys, I mean, Sam's getting all of his weapons back. And, we're going to, I think, keep rolling on offense here going into 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just going to be awesome. But really, it's that receiving core I'm so happy we're getting back. I mean, I wouldn't blame Daz if he did something like Ratliff Williams did last year, which to me was a surprising move. I didn't think I thought Ratliff Williams would come back for one more year, considering how bad that year was. But man, Daz really excelled in this system, and he might be worthy of a late draft pick or like priority undrafted free agent status as of right now, but it makes a lot of sense for him to come back and have another great season, 1,000-yard season.
Yeah, and he really could, and he could have even a bigger season than that, because I mean, to be honest with you, I think going into next season we will be one of the most powered offenses in the entire ACC. So you're looking at that and you're thinking, okay, I'm the star slot on this team. I could really rack up some yards here, and really we could maybe win the Coastal next year if I'm back here in this offense. I'm just speculating on what he might be thinking, but at the end of the day, I think you're right, Ben. I think that it helps him more than it hurts him to come back for his last year, and I think maybe where he would get drafted now would spike up big time. In the 2021 draft, he would maybe even be a second, third, fourth round pick, or maybe even first, depending on what kind of year he has.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I can't think of a football team that has more momentum going into next season, except for maybe whoever wins this national championship game. But
Right.
yeah, no, it's going to be amazing. Do you think we could potentially be ranked in the preseason?
I'm picking us to be. Yes, I really think we can. I think the question for the AP voters before the season starts will be the defense, because we do lose Strobridge, we do lose Crawford, and we do lose Miles Dorn, which are, I think, probably safe to say our 3 best defensive players all year. So we lose those guys, but we've got a bunch of recruits coming in to help fill those voids. We've got a bunch of young guys that got a lot of experience this year because of injuries and whatnot that will be a year older and can really help us in that regard of filling those voids. So to be honest with you, I think the defense, there will be some questions to start the year. I think the critique on us starting next year will definitely be how will the young guys on defense be able to match up. But offensively, I think we're going to roll next year, barring any kind of unforeseen injury or unforeseen, anything, departure or something like that. But I think we will be. I think we'll be ranked anywhere between 20 and 25. I don't think we'll be in the top 20. But I think we could easily be ranked within those 5 positions before the new year starts.
Yeah, man, I'd be happy to be number 25 after the roller coaster year we've had. But I mean, after we were 2-0, we were kind of flirting with the top 25, and unfortunately dropped the next 2 games. But yeah, I agree. I think we're going to be ranked. They're going to look at how many close games that these Tar Heels lost, and then coming out and just annihilating a pretty good team in Temple. It's going to be fun. I can't wait till next season.
Yeah, I'm excited for it too. And we got a fun schedule to look forward to. We open up at UCF, and then we play the Chick-fil-A kickoff game against Auburn in Atlanta. So right out of the gates, we get to play 2 really, really good teams that I think have dramatically different strengths. So we'll really get tested right out of the gates to see what we're made of.
Yep, exactly. I'm looking forward to it, and I know you definitely are, but that's about all we have for football, and I guess that's, besides any kind of draft, draft stuff or recruiting stuff, that's kind of it on the bulk of football season for the Heel Deal podcast. So we had a great time talking about it. I might have lost like a year of my life stressing out about some of these close games.
Yeah, me too. I've enjoyed it too. As you know, Ben, football is my favorite thing in the world to talk about, so I've really had a lot of fun with it. And yeah, we'll talk about the draft in April and stuff if we have any guys go. And until then, we'll just talk about whatever comes up.
Yep, exactly. But now that football exits the scene, that means basketball is getting into the full swing of things. So we got ACC regular season play coming up. It was kind of that weird scheduling. So right now UNC is sitting at 1-1 in ACC play since we won our opener against Notre Dame and then lost against Virginia. They increased the ACC schedule to 20 games, and 2 of them are like early in the season. It's really weird, but for the rest of the season up until the ACC tournament, it's just going to be these ACC teams. So I'm just going to like rattle off the people we play. We got Georgia Tech, Pitt, Clemson, at Pitt, at Virginia Tech, against Miami, at NC State, against Boston College, at Florida State, against Duke, at Wake Forest, against Virginia, at Notre Dame, at Louisville, against NC State, at Syracuse, against Wake Forest, and then we close out regular season play at Duke. So it's funny, I'm like, as I'm looking at this schedule, it shows like the ticket prices, and a lot of these games are like, some of them are like $17-16, some of them are $50, some of the blah blah blah, and then you get to the end at Cameron Indoor and it's tickets as low as $1,189.
Yeah, and that, to be honest with you, that is low. I mean, there's been some times where it's been worse. I think the one last year, when we went into Duke, before Zion blew out his shoe, I think they were in the 2,000 to close to 3,000 range. So that's actually pretty low.
Yeah, exactly. But it's funny because the game before that is Wake Forest. You can get a ticket for $22.
Right. Yeah.
But with any luck, I don't know if any of you listeners know how like the UNC student ticket lottery system works, but the Duke tickets are nearly impossible to come by, except you're apparently guaranteed one as a graduating senior, which Zach and I are. So hopefully we should be going to this game. We can give you some eyewitness testimony.
Yeah, we're hoping to get our guaranteed quote unquote tickets this year, but we'll have to wait and see how that goes once we get to February.
Yeah, exactly. The UNC ticket office is so screwy. I would not be shocked if something went wrong, but
yeah, me either. There's a lot of stuff that goes wrong with that whole situation, and I don't even get me started on football season this past year.
Yeah, that was a mess. I mean, halfway through the season, they swapped from like a first come, first serve to a lottery system because people actually figured out they liked watching football, apparently.
Well, it's just a bandwagon express. When you start doing anything well, everybody wants to start coming. So you just had a bunch of new students wanting to come to the game suddenly because it was popular.
Yeah, but I mean, it provided a good home field atmosphere.
Oh,
so I was happy with that.
No doubt.
Yep, so why don't we jump right into it? I mean, like I said, this is just going to kind of be a brief overview. So where are we kind of standing right now, Zach? I mean, as far as the numbers are concerned, we're 8-5 overall. We're 1-1 in ACC play. We had lost 4 straight. We had lost 5 of the last 6 until a little 2-game win streak against UCLA and Yale. So why don't we get into the Yale game a little bit? That was way too close for comfort. I don't know, what are your thoughts about that game?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I expected us to win bigger than we did. I was hoping that was going to be a game that we could come out and really try to assert our dominance in before we get into ACC play. And as you know, Ben, I mean, we didn't shoot very well for a lot of the game, and Yale shot decently throughout the game. And there at the end, I think it was basically one score almost for the last 1-2 minutes of the game, which is just not familiar territory.
Yeah, we had a decent lead, and then they hit a few lucky threes. I remember at one point we were up by a bit, and they fouled Jeremiah Francis, gave him a 1-and-1 because they only had 2 fouls with a couple minutes left in the half. They fouled They fouled Jeremiah Francis. He missed the first 1-and-1, and they had a shot to tie the game and send it into overtime, which fortunately they missed. But this Yale team, I mean, they're pretty decent for Ivy League, but we should have killed them. And it's just, again, we have to resign to the fact that this is a very, very frustrating team from an offensive standpoint.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think that now that we lost Anthony Harris and the kind of spark that he gave us during this game, but also UCLA, of course, in that second half, I think that, really this team's offense will only get so good, and they're going to do their best. I mean, Roy is going to have them in a position where they compete in most of these games that we have coming up. But this is not going to be an offensive team that is really going to score close to 100 in really any situation. I mean, we're struggling to even score 70 against Yale. So I think that right there gives you an indication of maybe how the offensive ceiling is for this Tar Heel team.
I mean, it's just crazy. I was at some point saw some highlights for the game when Gonzaga came to Chapel Hill last year. I think you were at that game with me, right?
Oh, yeah, we were.
Yeah, I mean, that was an amazing game, and we beat Gonzaga, who had a great defense. We put up over 100 points on them, and that seems like a fever dream. I don't remember what that feels like, what being on an offensive role feels like. It's been too long.
Right.
I mean, the most points we've scored this season, I think, is 81 against Gonzaga. That is we've crossed 80 points one time, and that was in a blowout loss. Like, that's terrible.
Right, and to your point, that Gonzaga game last year, we scored 103 points and only won by 13. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that Gonzaga team, as much as fun as that game was, Ben, and that's probably my favorite UNC sport experience as a student. That was an unbelievable game. But, yeah, I mean, we couldn't miss that night, and we still only won by 13. So, I mean, you take that offense away, and then you have to rely on all the defense to do a lot of the work for you. And you want to get into those types of games where you're flirting with 70 and things of that nature, because that's all you can score. So that means you have to devote your defense to making sure that the other team can only score that many. You can't get out into these big transition type games like we could last year, where we can allow teams to score 80, 90 points because we know we can score 100.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to be weighing over this team's head going into conference play, because there are some offenses that can absolutely light us up. I'm talking about, Virginia. They're all right on offense this year. I mean, we already lost to them once, but Louisville is pretty good. Duke is, always going to be good. We play them twice. Even Florida State has a good offense this year. It's going to be really, really tough.
Yeah, and I want to mention, now as we get into the ACC schedule outlook here, is that to be honest, Ben, I think we've touched on this a little bit before. Is the first month of our ACC schedule is without a doubt the easier month, and that is something that I think is very helpful for us, because although we don't know if by February we will be able to compete with teams like Louisville or Duke, or even Virginia, it is good to know that for this first month of ACC play, we are going to have an opportunity to not work out kinks anymore, but to have some more time to get used to each other and the new faces that are having to play more minutes, because we don't have to play anybody that is currently ranked until we get into February.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we haven't had too much luck this season, but this early ACC schedule is pretty lucky. We don't play a currently ranked team until we play number 18 Florida State a month from now on February 3rd. So with any luck, we're going to have Cole Anthony back by that time. And one of the bright spots since Cole Anthony's injury has been the emergence of Jeremiah Francis.
Right.
I don't know if we talked about this or I talked about this with someone else recently, but when we went to the early season games and we saw Anthony Harris and Jeremiah Francis wearing suits and stuff, I just thought they might not see the court at all this season. They're gonna be like Roy Williams developments and stuff like that. They might never actually be that good. I was a little bummed, but man, once Jeremiah put on his uniform, he has been the only real source of energy and shot creation that we have.
Right, and I think those guys, now obviously we won't get to see any more from Anthony this year, but Jeremiah, he and Anthony both, when they were both healthy, I think they kind of sensed that they were needed. And they were like, all right, we've been injured for the first part of the year, but now we're healthy, and now Cole is gone, and Brandon's a little banged up, Leakey's a little banged up, so we need to actually step up here, and we're needed. Like, we may not have known that at the very beginning of the year. We may not have felt needed like this at the beginning of November, but we have to help the team now. And I think they've kind of just dove into that head first, and I respect them a lot for that. I wish Anthony Harris was healthy. I really think he could end up being a really good player for us this year, not just waiting for years to come, but this year. And then Jeremiah, like you said, he's been creating some shots. He's been shooting okay from beyond the arc, and he's been able to try to, drive the basket a little bit and try to create some opportunities for Garrison and Armando inside. So I think watching him develop is going to be a very fun thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, it's really, really a bummer about Anthony Harris. He was playing a bit and giving some production similar to what I thought Christian Keeling was going to do for us and hasn't been able to so far. So he was also playing very well. It was these two freshmen, Francis and Harris, that were just surprising me. But unfortunately, against the Yale game, when Harris was dribbling baseline, he just kind of took a hop step, and you could see something went wrong with his knee, and unfortunately he tore his ACL, so he's going to be out for the rest of the season. Really tragic for him because he was just coming back from a torn ACL on the other knee, which caused him to sit out all of his high school senior year. So it's just really terrible, and we at the Heel Deal podcast all wish him a healthy, quick recovery.
Yeah, of course, and I think he'll be a guy that, if granted that he comes back from his injury and he's able to stay healthy, I think he'll be a guy who is around Chapel Hill for another 3 years, and he'll be able to really give us some quality minutes and could end up being an impact player for us down the road.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. Like Harris and Francis, neither of them scream out like, oh, these guys are going to leave after 1, 2, or 3 years because, they're blessed with super good athletic talent, blah, blah, blah. They're going to be really high draft picks. They kind of seem like the prototypical Roy Williams development kind of players, kind of like, Joel Berry, Theo Pinson. And by their senior year, they're going to be an amazing guard combo. So we just have to hope they can stay healthy for that.
Yeah, right, and that's the key thing, at least for Anthony, and then I know Jeremiah's been banged up too. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that they could definitely end up being that kind of duo like Marcus Page and Bryce Johnson were, or like Joel Berry and Theo Pinson were, where they stay for the duration of their time in college, and then they end up being kind of a dynamic duo we look back on and reminisce about good times. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I meant to tell you this earlier, but man, I was at some event last week, and I had a kid. I think he was just fresh out of high school. He was trying to tell me that it's time for Roy Williams to retire because he's resisting getting on the one and done train, man. And he said it's time to embrace the future, and it's time for UNC to move on from Roy Williams.
Yeah, well, the first thing I would have said to that guy was, all right, how many national championships have all the teams that have participated in the one and done mindset been to or won since maybe 2010 when this kind of thing started? Mm-hmm. And we've been to 2 and won 1. Kentucky's done the same. Duke has been to 1, and so. I mean, basically, what I would say to him is, what we're doing is working fine.
Yeah, those were my thoughts exactly.
Yeah, what we're doing is working fine. Yes, it is frustrating sometimes when it seems like there's teams around us that are at a high level that can take in young guys and insert them, and they look more like NBA-ready teams than we do. It is frustrating sometimes, but at the end of the day, Roy knows what he's doing, and we are doing fine with it. It's not always better, and it's never been worse than what anybody else is doing, but I think that kid is probably a little living too much in the recency bias of watching Duke play and things of that nature, where you just expect a bunch of positionless players to go out there and dunk and then leave after 1 year. I don't think that's what college basketball is really supposed to be about. And Roy has always been a guy who has been able to develop a team, and that's one of the things I love about the program.
Yep, I mean, I knew you'd say something along those lines. I didn't get into too big of an argument with this guy, but I thought you would find that funny. So why don't we wrap up this basketball preview? We've got 18 regular season ACC games left. Well, how many games do we have to win for it to be, your realistic best case scenario, Zach?
So how many do I think we'll win if it is best case scenario?
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't know. Maybe 10 to 12. I mean, I don't see us spend, to be honest, right now, and I hate to say this, and of course we'll talk about it way more as we get closer, but based off what I've seen, I don't think we're going to beat Duke either time this year. I think Duke may actually be the best team in the country, which is very scary to say. I don't think we'll beat Louisville at Louisville. I don't know about Florida State. They're very athletic, and they're starting the year out 12-2, so they're a really, really good basketball team. Syracuse could give us a lot of trouble because of the defense they play and the fact that we have to go play them on the road, and we just don't have the offensive ability. Maybe by February 29th that'll have changed, but that gives me a little bit of cause for concern there. And then, just, of course, the normal NC State game and things of that nature. You never know how that kind of thing is going to go. When we go to Virginia Tech, that always is a tough venue. So I'd say 10 to 12.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be good, and hopefully that would be enough to get us in the tournament. But as it stands right now, we're set to play, I think, against 5 ranked teams, or against ranked teams 5 times, because of course we played Duke twice.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take us right now in any of those games against number 18 Florida State, against Duke either times, against number 19 Virginia, or number 7 Louisville. I think they would kick our butts as it stands right now. And then all the other games I feel like are toss-ups. If we can't beat Yale by a significant margin, I don't think a game against Clemson or a game against Virginia Tech or Miami are going to be walks in the park at all. So really, it's going to make for an exciting season.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, 10 to 12 games I would be happy with. If we won 12 out of 18, man, if we won 2/3 of these games, I would be pretty stoked. But I think we'll get a clearer picture as the season progresses. See how Cole can return from his injury. Who knows? This team might get hot, as Roy Williams teams sometimes do. But we'll just have to see.
Yeah, this is going to be a week-by-week season, man. I mean, and all of our analysis of this will have to be subject to the boundaries of that particular week, because it's very hard for us to predict how this team's going to play on Saturday or tomorrow against Georgia Tech, or next week against Pittsburgh, or any of that stuff. I mean, it's just hard for us to really predict anything, and then especially when we get into February, God knows who we're going to have or what it's going to look like by then. So we're just going to have to take it 1 week at a time with kind of predicting what we think about this roster.
Yeah, exactly. And let's just pray for no more injuries and safe recovery for the guys that are hurt. But
right.
We're nearing the end of the episode. So why don't we talk a little bit about NFL? And actually, I kind of just want to spitball some things at you, some matchups, and then you give me who you think the winner is going to be. And I want to start with the college football national championship. Who you taking between LSU and Clemson?
First of all, let me just say, man, how about that game between Ohio State and Clemson? I mean, could you have gotten a better semifinal game to watch? I mean, that was just so much fun.
You're just smug because I thought Ohio State was going to kill Clemson, and you kept claiming that it was going to be a good game. So I tried to tell y'all smug about that.
I tried to tell y'all. But I mean, I picked Ohio State to win, so I'm not gonna act like I picked Clemson to win. But I mean, I'm telling you, when Lawrence got hit and he went down and then got back up, he rose up like a bat out of hell. And I just thought to myself, if anything is going to happen with Clemson winning this game, it's got to go now. And then on that particular drive, when they came back out and then went and I think they threw to ETN to get a touchdown. I was like, guys, I'm telling you, the floodgates are open now. Ohio State's going to have to play a great football game now if they want to get out of here with a win, because people forgot this year that Clemson basically has more talent than everybody in the whole country. They just played such a weak schedule that people forgot about how good they actually are. So we kind of got a reminder about that on Saturday. I'm really excited to see how they match up with LSU.
Yeah, no, I absolutely cannot wait. Yeah, I agree. When Trevor Lawrence took that huge hit, it reminded me of the hit that Joe Burrow took against UCF in I think the Music City Bowl last year. But ever since that hit, Joe Burrow became the player he is right now. So between the two teams, who you got?
I think Clemson is probably, if you look at every single position on the entire football field, I think they may be a little bit of a better roster. But Ben, I don't think it is right for me to pick against LSU's offense right now. I think that they're just rolling. I don't think there's anybody in the country that's going to be able to stop them enough to match them. I've got LSU winning by maybe a touchdown or two. It'll be a close game, at least for the first half into the third quarter. Clemson will not. They will give them the toughest game of the year they've had, maybe except for Alabama. So it's going to be a good game. I don't think LSU's going to blow them out like they did poor Oklahoma. But I think at the end of the day, LSU will have too much for Clemson on offense, and they will get just enough stops against Trevor Lawrence and Clemson's offense to be national champions. I got LSU.
Yeah, man, I have them too. I think LSU's defense is getting hot just at the right time, and I think it's going to be a shootout. But I'm going to take LSU too, and I'm an LSU fan. My dad went there, so I'm excited for this opportunity and happy for Joe Burrow winning the Heisman, all that kind of stuff. But let's move into the NFL, man. We got starting tomorrow. We got the two AFC games, and then on Sunday are the two the NFC games. So which one's the first one tomorrow? The first one is the
Texans
Bills.
and Bills.
Yeah. Who you got there?
Well, to be honest with you, I think it's a toss-up. I think they've got a 57% chance for the Texans to win, but I'm going to go with the Bills, man. I mean, I've watched them play against New England twice this year, and I'm telling you, they've got a legit defense, and the offense can play complementary to that with the running game. I think Texans are a good football team, but I think later in the year when they ran into Tennessee and they really had to pull out everything just to win the division, they won the division, right? Yeah, they did. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I think that the Bills are a little bit more hungry right now, and I've got Buffalo winning, which goes against everything that I would like to say because I'm a Patriots fan. But I think the Bills are going to take that one.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be a toss-up, and I'm actually very interested. I think it just depends on whether they get good or bad Josh Allen. The Texans have a pretty bad defense, so really I think that might be the best matchup on paper of the weekend. Okay, but then next game, that's New England against who is it? Tennessee.
Tennessee, yeah. And I know what I wanted to say, Ben, is I know you and I are both probably pretty upset and shocked that our teams are having to play this weekend. We were both expecting to have to play for the first time next weekend, but it is what it is. But regarding the Patriots and Titans game, I think that New England will win the game, but it will be a fourth quarter one possession game. The Titans are a very good football team. New England's defense is very, very angry right now because of the way they gave up the final drive to the Dolphins last weekend. So they're going to come out flying around like they have all year. I don't imagine the guy who matches up with Stephon Gilmore will be able to really leave the line of scrimmage much. So I think the Patriots win that game. It'll be very close, though.
Yeah, I agree. And just to add some context to what you were saying, I don't know if the listeners know this, but of course Zach is a Patriots fan. I'm a lifelong Saints fan. So for the Patriots had a first round bye until the Dolphins upset them, and then the Chiefs won, which pushed them down to the third seed, first time since 2010, right?
2010, yeah, when they hosted the Jets in the wild card round at home, and then that was 2010. Yeah, I can't remember. It's a long time ago, but yeah, it's been a long time. It's been almost a decade.
Yeah, and then the Saints finished the season 13-3, and there have only been two teams in NFL history that have finished 13-3 and not gotten a first round bye. So they needed the Vikings to beat the Packers week 16, and then either the Seahawks to beat the 49ers week 17. We all saw how that ended, 2 inches short, or the Lions to beat the Packers, and the Lions had like a 16-point lead and blew it. So yeah, Zach, both of us are frustratingly having to watch our teams play this weekend. But before I rant too much, give me your NFC matchups. So that first game's gonna be it'll be the Saints versus the Vikings. I think that's the 1:00 game.
Right, yeah, Saints versus Vikings. I think the Saints are definitely the better football team. The Vikings are very opportunistic and they have a lot of talent, but the Saints are very good. I think they're very hungry. They're still very upset about the way things ended last year, and I think Drew Brees has played better or as good as anybody in the entire league this year. So I've got the Saints winning that one. I think they definitely go on to play a very, very entertaining matchup at Lambeau Field.
Yeah, man. I'm nervous. The last 2 seasons I've had my heart torn out, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how I get my heart torn out this year. And then,
Well, Ben, I'm gonna tell you right now, man. Until someone can figure out how to cover Michael Thomas, I don't think that there's really anything that you can do to stop them. Because I've seen defenses just have the stupidest looks trying to cover him, and it just makes me laugh. But I don't know. Maybe they're trying something that I would. It looks obvious, but it may not be. But I think that he's unbelievable. I mean, didn't he and Stephon Gilmore both get voted unanimous AP All Pro today?
yeah, all
Yeah.
50 voters voted. They were the only
Yeah.
two unanimous. So,
Yeah, and that's deserving too. I mean, that guy Thomas is unbelievable.
I mean, just think if we finally get our Tom Brady versus Drew Brees Super Bowl matchup, man, it'll be Mike Thomas versus Stephon Gilmore, and I
Yeah.
can't think of a better matchup than that.
That would be the best game within a game that you could think of.
Yeah, exactly. But before we ramble too much, give me the last game, Seahawks versus Eagles, which are two just wildly inconsistent teams, man.
I got Seahawks, man. I mean, look, the way that the playoffs are set up, the NFC East got somebody in with a home game, despite everybody being, not very good. The Seahawks are very, I think, a very good football team. Like you mentioned, they were basically an inch short from having a whole different scenario happen with the NFC playoffs this past Sunday night. I think that they're going to roll through the Eagles. It'll be tough for a while because they're playing in Philadelphia, but I think Zach Ertz is beat up. I think he's basically playing with a broken rib. I think that one of their offensive linemen, it may be not Kelsey, but God,
Goddard.
well, no, not the tight end. It's the
Oh.
guard.
The
Anyway,
guard.
yeah. Anyway,
Misheard you, sorry.
yeah. So somebody's banged up, and then I think they have Alshon Jeffrey out for that game. So I don't anticipate the Eagles are going to have too much for the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks get out of there with about a 10-point win or so.
Yeah, that'll be interesting because that'll put the Seahawks against the Niners for the third time.
Yep.
That'd be a very interesting matchup. But I don't want to get into too many hypotheticals and have you predict like all the rest of how the playoffs work out. But by the time we record next week, we'll be able to talk about some of the matchups there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we can kind of, keep the last part of our podcast until the playoffs are over to kind of discuss what's going on. So it's going to be interesting tomorrow and Sunday. I'm excited to watch it. Feels weird that the Patriots are playing on Wild Card Weekend, but it is what it is. They brought it on themselves, so I'm just excited to watch it.
Yeah, exactly. So whether it's UNC basketball, whether it's NFL football, NBA is going on, NHL is going on. This is an awesome time of the year, Zach, and I'm glad we get to talk about it. Is there any last points?
No, that's it. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed us talking basketball and final little discussion of UNC football, and then also the playoff thing. We're trying to incorporate a little bit of other stuff with you, so it's not just always about UNC everything. And so yeah, I mean, there's nothing else there to add, Ben. Looking forward to talking about everything next week as we see how these first ACC games go and we get back to school and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys, want to hear us talk about anything else that we're not talking about, hit us up on Twitter at Heel Deal Podcast, and we'd be happy to include it in future episodes. But yeah, we're gonna be back at school starting like after this weekend. So next episode should be coming sometime next weekend. It's gonna be every week now instead of every 2 weeks since break's gonna be over.
Yep, we'll get back to our normal schedule, and we'll talk to you guys about mostly basketball, but then some other things like the NFL playoffs. So looking forward to it.
Absolutely, Zach. Well, it's been good talking to you.
Yeah, man. I'll see you on, I guess, Monday or Tuesday of next week.
Absolutely.
And as always, sorry, don't let me forget, go to Hell Duke.
Go to Hell Duke.